That's our news. We'll see you at 6.
See you at 6.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. These are some of the main developments during day 26 of the war in the Gulf just ended. According to the U.S. High Command, among the targets have been an Iraqi convoy in Kuwait and a government ministry building responsible for Kuwaiti affairs in Baghdad itself. The Iraqis themselves said there were more than 100 Allied raids on military targets alone. U.S. pilots have reportedly managed to destroy more Scud launchers in western Iraq. Another handful of Iraqis have given themselves up. And according to reports in Moscow and in Iraq, the Soviet envoy sent by Mikhail Gorbachev is trying once again to get Saddam Hussein to leave Kuwait. For part of the time, Evgeny Primakov got pretty much the same impression in Baghdad that visiting journalists are allowed to get. A nighttime of bombing and a daytime tour of the damage. ABC's Bill Blakemore is there. His report is subject to Iraqi censorship.
Soviet envoy Evgeny Primakov's first night in Baghdad put him right in the middle of this war. Throughout the night, missiles and bombs roared in. The impacts visible from the hotel where he and all the foreign journalists are staying. Air raid sirens continued during the day as Primakov was given a tour of Baghdad's ruined government building.
This is the Ministry of Justice.
Communication centers.
What's happened with all the telecommunication centers?
Bridges.
By missile or by bomb?
By rockets.
And some residential districts.
The rockets of the plane been down these houses.
Primakov hinted that he might have seen enough to suggest the Allied forces were exceeding their United Nations mandate to use force to drive Iraqi forces from Kuwait.
He hits the civilian districts as well. And from this point of view also, the war is tremendous. Terrible.
Primakov has said nothing about his mission. He is understood by journalists not to be carrying any detailed plans for a ceasefire, but rather to be looking for some kind of way to assure Saddam Hussein there would be no retribution if he leaves Kuwait. He finished his tour of Baghdad as the day ended and left possibly to see the Iraqi president. There is no word yet about any meeting between them. While Primakov was touring Baghdad, some of the journalists here were taken 150 miles north to the city of Kirkuk, which appeared to have suffered only limited damage from bombardments, though the deprivations of this war were plainly visible. Even here in the city of Kirkuk, at the center of one of Iraq's richest oil fields, the streets are empty. There's no gas for sale for private cars anywhere. And with the local power station bombed, there's no electricity to run the pumps for running water. We were shown 2 bombed houses. A neighbor said 4 died here in an attack 2 weeks ago. A woman who lived in the house recovered what she could from the rubble. At the other house, neighbors told us a whole family of 15 died here. Bush is a coward, they said. If he wants to take Kuwait, that's hundreds of miles away. Why kill civilians here? Tonight in Baghdad, again, more Allied airstrikes. Some of them in the neighboring areas of the Soviet envoy's hotel. Baghdad radio is reporting nothing of substance about the Soviet envoy's visit, but only reasserting that Iraqi will is strong and ready for a ground war whenever the Allies want it. Bill Blakemore, ABC News, Baghdad.
A late note on the Primakov visit. Baghdad radio said tonight that Saddam Hussein is willing to cooperate with the Soviet Union and other nations on seeking an end to the war. It says that President made the comment during his meeting with Mr. Primakov, but there are no other details. From the Soviet Union today, by the way, further criticism of what the U.S. is doing to Iraq. The Communist Party newspaper Pravda says American war tactics could help the corpse of the Cold War scramble out of its grave. And there's a report tonight that Iraqi broadcasting facilities have been moved high up on the Allied hit list. The Allied commanders would undoubtedly like to eliminate Saddam Hussein's ability to rally the Iraqi people behind him, for which radio and television, when it is working, are certainly useful. And there is no question that President Bush would like to cut off the Iraqis' ability to communicate altogether. Look out from Washington at the rest of the world, and it is now possible to see the resentment caused by the massive bombing of Iraq, which the Iraqis have increasingly managed to publicize by allowing journalists into the country for a limited look. ABC's Britt Hume is at the White House.
For the first time today, clear signs that pictures like these, approved by the Iraqi government and broadcast around the world, have begun to worry the Bush administration. In an Oval Office meeting between the President and British Defense Minister Tom King, there was agreement on the need for continued Allied bombing. But the President went out of his way, while cameras and microphones were still present, to tell his guest of his concern about Saddam Hussein's claims.
I think there's a conscientious effort on his part to try to raise the propaganda value of accusing us of indiscriminate bombing of civilians, and it's simply not true.
The President went on to cite Iraq's Scud missile attacks, its treatment of Allied prisoners, and the massive Gulf oil spill before returning to the issue of alleged targeting of civilians.
You're this one-sided propaganda machine cranking out a lot of myths and falsehoods, but I don't think the world is buying it.
Perhaps not, but the Pentagon today went out of its way to explain why so many Iraqi bridges have been bombed.
The theater of operations are dominated by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and therefore the Iraqis have to cross those rivers in order to provide war material to their forces at the front.
Sources here say what caused the sudden concern about Iraqi propaganda was Mikhail Gorbachev's suggestion over the weekend that the Allies might be carrying the air war too far. With the air war due to continue for several weeks, that got people's attention. Britt Hume, ABC News, the White House.
In a moment, Egyptian troops on the front line and their Iraqi visitors. Iraqi Americans with emotional ties here and there, and forecasts about recovery for the American economy.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Merrill Lynch.
How early is too early to plan for your retirement? All things considered, right now is not too early for most people to talk with Merrill Lynch. You're going to need about 60% of your pre-retirement income to retire comfortably. And we have ways you may not even have thought about to help you build for that goal. When should you start planning for retirement? Well, even this is not too early. Merrill Lynch, we're bullish on your financial future.
This is the sound of Unisom, the sound of sleep. With Unisom, you hit your pillow and fall asleep fast. Tonight, you can sleep more soundly with Unisom, America's #1 sleep aid.
When minor arthritis pain holds you back, you need strong medicine. Bengay, with not just one but 2 pain relievers, warming power for fast relief. Bengay helps get you going again. Bengay, fast, strong medicine for pain relief.
Reports from Saudi Arabia today of the largest combined operation since the war began. Saudi and American troops using artillery, backed up by airstrikes and gunfire from the battleship Missouri, all of them focused on a single Iraqi position in southeastern Kuwait. We don't know what the target was, and there was apparently no sign of return fire from the Iraqis. We've 2 reports from the battlefield tonight. ABC's Forrest Sawyer has made his way to some Egyptian troops on the front lines in Saudi Arabia, just in time to see some Iraqi soldiers give themselves up.
2 Iraqi deserters who made a risky 3-mile trip across no man's land surrendered to Egyptian soldiers. The Egyptians liked what they heard about the effects of Allied bombing.
Living is very difficult. Very, very difficult. Because when they came, he wanted eating.
For 5 months, Arab forces have manned the front line. A massive earth berm scooped out of the flat desert floor running along the Saudi-Kuwaiti border. From here, they stare across to the distant Iraqi fortifications, watching for deserters or invaders. And when a ground war begins, these troops will almost certainly be among the first to attack. But officials here say the assault is still not close.
All the commanders said that there are time for preparation our troops, our forces for ground war.
For now, there is only waiting. This soldier is standing at the farthest point north. There is nothing between him and the Iraqis. But so far, all the troops here know of the war is the distant bombing they've been hearing 24 hours a day.
You can see, yes. Good. It's a rocket.
The nightly ritual, Allied bombing runs, a distant sound and light show filled with spotter flares, lighting up the ground for pilots looking for kills. Until now, most of their assaults have been miles from these positions. But as the ground war looms nearer, the bombing will shift to the front line in preparation for the attack. Forrest Sawyer, ABC News, at the Saudi border with Kuwait.
Later this evening on Nightline, a further report from Forrest Sawyer on Egyptian forces, their life on the front line, and more on why those Iraqis decided to throw in the towel. The Allied High Command said today that more than 30,000 combat missions have been flown against occupied Kuwait as of now. As ABC's Bill Rediker reports, it is getting harder to find viable targets.
Colonel Rick McDowell commands a squadron of fighter pilots assigned to missions they never thought they would fly. McDowell and his pilots were originally trained to provide close air fire support for troops during the daytime. But now they are attacking Iraqi tanks and artillery in Kuwait, and they are doing it at night. In the least sophisticated plane here, the slow-moving, low-flying A-10. No computers, no radar, no night vision.
Airplane doesn't have an autopilot. It doesn't fly hands-off very well. You constantly have one hand on the stick.
McDowell finds his targets by looking at the infrared image that his Maverick missiles use for guidance. It is a jury-rigged system and useless once the missiles are fired. So he then drops flares from this pod to visually spot targets on the desert below. This night, McDowell fires only one Maverick that he says hits an artillery piece. In Kuwait, he says, the Iraqis are getting smarter and are hiding their equipment.
Well, there's a lot fewer targets to look for, and I think they're getting more skillful at hiding, too.
Since the war began, McDowell has flown 29 sorties, all of them in Kuwait. When the air war shifts to an air-land battle, the job of Colonel McDowell will be even more difficult, more dangerous. A-10s are expected to fly as low as 1,000 feet above the battlefield to provide cover for advancing U.S. ground troops. As squadron commander, McDowell has told his younger pilots what to expect if they are shot down and taken prisoners of war and how to react.
And if you end up down on the ground in Iraq, surrounded by several hundred troops with weapons, it's probably time to realize that to resist with your pistol would be futile.
The pilots listen because nearly 20 years ago, in another place, during another war, McDowell was shot down and endured more than 9 months of captivity in North Vietnam. Given the success in this air war, the danger of being shot down is slim, so McDowell and his pilots continue to photograph defensive positions in Kuwait. But they cannot be sure if tanks and artillery are buried there.
There are some more of those fortifications on the straight lines. That would be a common place for him to park his tanks. It's not an uncommon military practice to vacate areas and then come back.
Colonel McDowell will be back too. Bill Rediker, ABC News, Saudi Arabia.
There is speculation today as whether Saddam Hussein has embarked on another campaign to impede the Allied campaign against him. The PLO chairman Yasser Arafat has told ABC's Pierre Salinger that the Iraqi leader planned to ignite all the oil facilities in Kuwait. It may be a coincidence, but take a look at Kuwait as seen from space over the weekend. All that black smoke represents fires burning at oil installations. More than 50 separate fires, according to the Pentagon. They may have been set by the Iraqis. They may also be the result of Allied bombing. There was a new estimate today from Saudi Arabia on how much it will cost to clean up that massive oil slick off the coast. Saudi officials think it will cost $1 billion over the next 6 months, $4 billion more over the next 5 to 10 years. The oil continues to foul the coastline, and it is devastating to wildlife. Here's ABC's Ron Claiborne.
On the beach at Al Baria, water no longer washes ashore, only oil. As much as 500 million gallons of crude, the world's largest spill, have turned the surf into a black, viscous mass. And trapped just offshore, a cormorant, a native Gulf seabird. It gasps for air and struggles to survive.
The oil is getting into their plumage. They're losing their buoyancy coming onto land. Most of them can't eat, can't drink, and they're not dying. We're just going to try and see if we can do something about it.
Marine biologist Nick Pilcher goes in to grab him. The cormorant will be taken to a center where oil-soaked animals are cleaned. He may be lucky. Nearly 80% survive if they can be rescued in time. but thousands of others will be casualties, trapped by a war that caught them in the wrong place at the wrong time. Ron Claiborne, ABC News, Saudi Arabia.
We'll have more news in just a moment.
LensCrafters made me these wonderful top-quality glasses and got me back on track in about an hour.
LensCrafters puts the whole lab right in the store to custom craft your top-quality glasses in about an hour. Call LensCrafters at 1-800-522-LENS.
What pain reliever do doctors trust so much they've recommended it over 50 million times in just 6 years? Advil. Gentler to your stomach than aspirin. Safe, trusted, doctor recommended. Advil. Advanced medicine for pain.
So what are we hearing now? Wait on airbags for minivans. Nobody puts an airbag in a minivan. It's too tough to engineer them. Well, we did it anyway. No waiting. They're here. Sure, people still have to wear seatbelts with a minivan airbag. So what? Everybody should wear a seatbelt. No, some things you wait for, some things you don't. Minivans with airbags, you don't wait.
You know, you get so much more out of cold mornings when you've got energy. That's why I eat grape nuts. And I found a great new way to make it. Hot. Just pour your grape nut cereal, add milk, and microwave it for 1 minute. You've got this warm, hearty taste that feels so good. And a natural energy source to help keep you going. So, even if it's a cold morning, hot grape nuts helps make it a good one. Try it yourself.
Hot or cold, breakfast with Post Grape Nuts helps keep you going strong all morning long.
The Bush administration said today it is raising money for Israel from the European allies to help Israel defray some of the costs of the Gulf War. At the State Department, there was further praise for Israeli restraint in the face of Iraqi Scud attacks. And ABC's Dean Reynolds is in Tel Aviv.
For 2 weeks, the country had been trying to get back to normal. Israelis were in the markets and back on the beach. People had been making light of the Scud threat, even holding bizarre fashion shows with the latest in wartime apparel. But the Israeli military warned against a false sense of security, that Saddam Hussein was still a menace. And overnight, he proved it. 2 Scuds in 7 hours had a sobering effect. All of the vulnerability and frustration came back.
You start shaking. Not scared that you're going to die or something, but just really angry at Saddam and just saying, this is too much, we can't take it anymore.
But Israel is holding back, as Washington wants, in exchange for a major increase in U.S. aid. Sources here say an Israeli plan for action exists and may involve a combined airstrike and commando raid on the Scud missile sites in western Iraq, which the Israelis believe they can do a better job of finding. There is always concern here that Israeli restraint will be seen by Arab enemies as weakness. And there is impatience over the inability of the Allied forces to scuttle the Scuds.
We don't know how long it will take, and it's been also almost a month, and something has to be done.
While the government's no retaliation policy has been supported so far by most Israelis, restraint in the face of enemy threats runs counter to Israeli military doctrine. Dean Reynolds, ABC News, Tel Aviv.
We've 2 other notes from overseas. In China today, the toughest sentences yet for those who led the Tiananmen Square pro-democracy demonstrations last year. 37-year-old Chen Ziming and 32-year-old Wang Juntao were given 13 years each in jail. Each was given only 1 day in court. The government said the sentences were so long because neither man showed a willingness to repent. Another vestige of the Cold War is about to be buried. The Kremlin announced today that the Warsaw Pact military alliance will be formally disbanded on the 1st of April. There's really not much to disband. When communism folded up in Eastern Europe, the alliance just sort of faded away. We'll be back in just a moment.
What do professionals do when they get a clogged sink, a stopped-up shower, a backed-up tub? They just pour in the power. The professional power of professional strength liquid Drano with 3 active ingredients. The power it takes to clear really tough clogs. Professionals use the professional liquid, and now you can too. Pour in the power. Professional strength liquid Drano.
Flu update. The Centers for Disease Control report. 3 highly contagious flu strains. And they're spreading unchecked. Millions will be stricken. What will you do? Doctors recommend Theraflu. Theraflu is hot liquid medicine. Strong therapy for flu symptoms. Hot liquid therapy that works fast. What will you do when you get the flu? Doctors recommend Theraflu. Strong therapy for flu symptoms.
Good morning, America!
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wake up, you sleepyhead. Good morning to you and you and you.
Get up, get out of bed.
Every morning all across America, over 50 million people come to life with Delta faucets.
Live, love, laugh and be happy.
Good morning, good morning.
Delta, the way water is brought to life.
A few small towns in western Pennsylvania have produced more football legends than any other place. Dan Marino, Johnny Unitas, George Blanda. What is it about these towns that gives birth to such greatness? The very things that drive us at Ford. When leadership is in your blood, you push yourself to even greater heights. In fact, starting right now, you'll be seeing more new models and exciting innovations from Ford than you've seen in years. Ford Motor Company.
The White House said today the recession will end before the summer, even if the war is still going on. In the annual report on how the economy is shaping up, President Bush's own economic advisors also say the recovery will be very strong. Away from the White House, there is disagreement about how strong the recovery will be. Here's ABC's Stephen Ogg.
Many economists say the sharp increase in the price of oil right after Iraq invaded Kuwait and the plunge in consumer confidence over the following weeks were the main reasons the economy fell into recession. The chairman of the President's Council of Economic Advisors says now that oil prices are back down, half that problem has been solved. And that means
more income into consumers' pockets because they're spending less on gasoline and heating oil and so on. But that removes that direct drag on the economy.
having that extra cash should push ordinary consumers' spending up over the next few months. But consumers, worried about the economy and the war, still may lack the confidence to make long-term commitments necessary to buy automobiles and houses. What's more, people who build houses are having trouble getting financing.
We don't see any recovery in housing for years. The financial infrastructure has crumbled. Most S&Ls don't exist anymore. The ones that do are afraid to loan money on anything other than gilt-edged securities.
Housing construction has often been a major factor behind past economic recoveries. So even those economists who expect the recession to end this spring say the recovery is going to be unusually weak. Stephen Ogg, ABC News, Washington.
On Wall Street today, prices were down as traders cashed in some of their profits from yesterday's strong rally. The Dow Jones Industrials lost more than 27 points to close at 28.74, and the trading was pretty heavy. A federal appeals court has overturned the 45-year prison sentence given to the television evangelist Jim Bakker. Baker's conviction on 24 counts of defrauding his followers was upheld, but the court said the judge who sentenced Bakker in 1989 showed prejudice by making a remark about money-grubbing preachers. Baker's sentence is very likely to be reduced. We'll have our final report in just a moment.
Stouffer's invites you to eat like you really like to eat. Introducing 8 of your all-time home-style favorites, like tender Salisbury steak with our original macaroni and cheese, sliced turkey breast in gravy with homemade stuffing. And to tempt you even more, they're all under 370 calories. So dig in. They're new from Stouffer's.
Every business morning, while the rest of the world is getting up, UPS is guaranteeing overnight delivery before 10:30 to the most people, places, and businesses for up to half what other companies charge. And every business morning, more people are waking up to that fact.
Good morning.
What do you call a car that has learned to use the wind? A car designed to settle in when you race into it head on and stabilize when it buffets you from the side. Road and Track. called it one of the 10 best cars in the world. But it is probably better known as the Infiniti Q45.
Tonight on Nightline, an exclusive report from the front lines. Forrest Sawyer witnesses the surrender of Iraqi soldiers and reports on their life under siege tonight.
Finally this evening on the subject of homesickness. Because this is a nation of immigrants, it should come as no surprise to any of us that some Americans may be deeply troubled that war is being waged against the nation they left, but where they may still have emotional bonds and even family. It was the case for many Japanese Americans during World War II. It is the case for some Iraqi Americans now. Here's ABC's Judy Muller.
Most of the members of this mosque consider themselves refugees from Saddam Hussein's dictatorship. Most of them are Americans. Most of them have family in Iraq. All of them are torn.
You're torn between here and there. This is all on my mind all day long and night, and you know, you don't know what's going on there.
They don't know, so they can only guess.
If they will not die of the shortage of the food and the water, I'm sure they will be killed by that bomb.
They haven't heard from their families since the war began.
My kids ask me what has happened to my cousins and what has happened to my uncles, and I can't answer that.
So many questions. Has a brother been drafted?
I'm sure he's somewhere in Kuwait because the army in Iraq is not a voluntary army. Everybody is drafted and has to go and fight, and if they don't, they face either execution or imprisonment.
Some worry about facing discrimination here.
It's really scary because you don't know what's in people's minds. You know, they have this idea that if you're Iraqi or if you're a Muslim, then you're a terrorist and you're out to get everyone.
Many Iraqi Americans are afraid to talk publicly about their feelings. As one woman here put it, if I say something against Saddam, I fear for my family in Iraq. If I say something against the war, I fear for my family here. And so they talk to one another. On this day, they talked about organizing a relief effort to send medicine to Baghdad.
You can write a letter to the president.
And the children wrote to President Bush.
I don't understand why they bombing my mom's family, and she cries every night.
Dear George Bush, I feel sad because the war is happening. My mother is worried about her cousins in Iraq. This is Saddam Hussein.
I gather you don't like Saddam Hussein?
No.
Why not?
Because he killed a lot of people. And he killed my mother's cousin.
What do you hope happens now?
Well, hope the war stops and everybody is safer.
The hopes of the children are echoed in the prayers of their parents.
All what I do now, honestly, I just pray. That's all. I can't do anything.
And so they remain in a place that's neither here nor there. Judy Muller, ABC News, Los Angeles.
That is our report on World News Tonight. We'll have reports on the war every hour on the hour, and of course on Nightline. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
And now, the news continues with Channel 2 News at